Last time I spent a few days exploring the Magruder Corridor and searching for the elusive mountain huckleberry so I could make some pancakes to deliver me from evil while traveling the Magruder Corridor. If you don't know, the Magruder Corridor is about 120 miles one way, crossing the rugged Rockies from Idaho to Montana. My intention was to travel to Darby, Montana, and return to Idaho later that day. The entire length of the Magruder Corridor is really not that rugged. There are rugged spots and sharp turns and big boulders in the road, but most of the trail looks like this. A majority of the trail looks like this. Some roads are very high-speed trails and roads with some moments of, oh hell, what did I get myself into? But most of the trails like this, I would say an average rider could maintain 30-40 miles an hour through 70-80% of the trail. And some of the sections like this are upwards of 60-70 miles an hour for a decent rider. But this is most of what I experienced across until I came across one of my first stops, which was a very historically significant stop. Turns out that the Magruder Corridor was named after a pack train driver named Lloyd Magruder, who was murdered here in 1863 on his way back from Virginia City, where he sold supplies to miners. After selling his goods to the miners in Virginia City, Magruder and a partner hired 5 more men to accompany them, 3 of which had their eyes on Magruder's $18,000 in gold dust that he received as payment. While Magruder and his men camped on a ridge 5 miles from this spot, the 3 murderers killed Magruder and his men, stole the gold, and killed his pack animals to prevent them from following them. They escaped to Portland, but were eventually captured by an innkeeper who was deputized to bring them back to justice. Turns out they were the first 3 executions in the state of Idaho. Lloyd Magruder became an icon of Idaho, and eventually they named what was formerly known as the Nez Perce Trail the Magruder Corridor. It's also known today as Forest Road 468 and is often assumed to be haunted, at least in this section of the corridor.
Well, sometimes I can see things that happened a long time ago. I think a lot of things happened right here in this particular
road
over the years, and not all of them was good.
What about
Road 468? Road 468.
you're scared of me?
Road 468.
Thank you.
No, I ain't.
Mr. Allen, what is it?
Road 468.
Nothing. There ain't nothing in
Road 468.
but you ain't got no business going in there anyway. So stay out. You understand? Stay out.
So it's day 3 in the Nez Perce.
Road 468.
The first real attempt that I've made to cross the Magruder Corridor. And of course I picked the shittiest day yet. I mean, it rained yesterday, but I don't think I think it rained hard for maybe 20-30 minutes. And then it was nice. It was nice before. It was cold and till mid-morning. And then it rained, I don't know, sometime afternoon, closer to 2. And I think I've seen some parts where it puddled up pretty good, so I think it was pretty hard rain, but less than 30 minutes of thunderstorms. But I left out this morning at 8:30, hoping to cross the Magruder Corridor in 3 hours. My plan was to blaze across and then take my time on the way back. That way I didn't have to actually tackle going there and worry about getting back after dark and all that shit. But anyway, I picked the wrong day because it's shitty as hell. It's freezing fucking cold. I think it's almost 40 degrees out here. So I had to stop and layer up. I had a waterproof jacket on, but I didn't put my sweater on, and it just got colder and colder. I was gonna man up and ride with my mesh pants and no sweater, but I packed them in the bag just in case it get cold or wet, and it did both. And it's not even 10 o'clock, I don't think. It is quarter after, no, hell. Damn, it's 10:30. It's 10:30, so I've been riding for 2 hours, and I think I'm close to halfway. So obviously my 3-hour thing is not gonna work because I've already had 3 pit stops. Got something in my eye, still have something in my eye. Damn it. Had 3 pit stops, and one of them was a baggage check. I almost lost my bag in the back, but I think I got that figured out. Just gonna layer up here again, get back on. Looks like the rain slowed down enough. The only thing I'm worried about at this point is my gloves. My gloves are wet already, and my hands were cold before they got wet, so it's a concern. But, you know, I'm not going to freeze to death with my hands. It's just going to be very painful. So. But I got to show you just a little bit about... I mean, it looks like the smoke's got to be clearing up because you can see just as far, and it's a rainy day, so... I'm thinking maybe the good side is, well, several good sides. The rain is what I was hoping for yesterday to soak the road so there's no dust and maybe run some of the four-wheelers and cars off. But it's definitely less traffic today. I've only passed two motorcycles. No, one motorcycle. No, 2 motorcycles. I passed 2 motorcycles today. I've passed 4 side-by-sides and maybe 4 cars, and I'm halfway, and that's really good for a Sunday, I think. Pack up, get back on the road, see if I can make the whole thing in 5 hours. It's probably going to turn out to be 6 because I'm going to have to stop again. My eyes bugging the shit out of me. After suiting back up, I rolled down the hill about a mile and ran into the Montana Conservation Corps. Pretty interesting group that I'd been meaning to talk to, and lucky for me there were a couple of ladies inside the SUV, and they talked to me for a few minutes on camera. And for more information about the Conservation Corps, click the link.
My name's Brittany. I am the youth program coordinator for the Montana Conservation Corps in Missoula, Montana. And I guess essentially what that means is I manage and coordinate a program for youth. So in the heat of the summer, we will have 4 crews out, and they do a variety of things. They've been doing like clearing trails with crosscuts, which they're doing over there. So we have a group at Valley of the Moon, which is kind of up Rock Creek near Missoula, and they are tearing apart a bridge and punch-in so that they can eventually build a new one with the Forest Service. That's another thing. The main project partners we work with are the Forest Service, the Bureau of Land Management, and you know, the other regions sometimes work with the national parks. Our Bozeman and Kalispell offices work with Yellowstone and Glacier.
Me and my co-lead and plus 5. We have 5 high schoolers. Every day I've been branching out from base camp and clearing and brushing, so we've been cross-cutting logs and fallen trees that have gotten in the way, clearing any saplings or shrubs or anything that could cause a pack bump. So like for the outfitters, their stuff gets jumbled or the horses can't. Pretty much just a way for the horses to get through.
It was a great stop and great great to have a chance to talk to the ladies from the Conservation Corps, but I had a mission to accomplish today. It had started to warm up at this point and dry up, thankfully, because my hands were getting very cold. But I was determined to make it to Darby and back to camp before the sun went down. So I was pushing it at this point. Having the opportunity to stop was great, but accomplishing the mission was foremost in my mind. And it was really hard trying to pay attention to the road. As you see, I almost missed that turn. Trying to pay attention to the road while enjoying the beauty and the spectacle. I did have to slow down a few times. This was one of the few bridges on the corridor, but it was obvious that I was getting close to civilization at this point, because road signs and bridges, and there was an outfitter on this section too. A very rugged section to get to. I know you have to have four-wheel drive to get through some of these sections, because a regular passenger car just would not clear, and it's hard to get traction. And if you brought a passenger or two-wheel drive car into some of these sections and the road conditions deteriorated, then it would be very difficult or impossible to get out. But right here I'm driving along a very nice creek that's cut into the rocks just before I hit pavement, and started to become more populated. And just as I was getting close to pavement, the rain started coming down outside of the campground, and but I could see the end in sight. I could see I could see my goal of reaching Darby before getting completely frostbitten, and I finally made it to Darby and enjoyed some cold beer with some outstanding pizza, and warmed up just before my return ride back to camp. At this point, it had taken me 5.5 hours to get to Darby after leaving camp. So I was determined to make better time on the way back in order to get back to camp before dark. So I turned it up a couple of notches and enjoyed the scenery as best I could on the way back. But it was really hard, because you have these sections that are just lush and green, like this section and many others, and then when you got up on top of the ridges, you would see the damage from all the successive fires. But then you would also be able to enjoy the beauty and the view, but it was always a little bit tainted. And this is one of the thicker sections here. Actually, this is a section that had collapsed and was recently repaired. I was even unsure if I was going to be able to get through this section, because the whole side of the mountain had collapsed, and they had to bring tractors in. And here's this section right here where you can see they brought a cage in and put rocks in so to stabilize the roadway. But you can see that the Forest Service puts a lot of effort into maintaining this path, because this is a big economic factor for the local township and the folks. There's thriving pack service and tour service through here, so there's all kinds of people that depend on this road for people to be able to get back and forth. And this is one of the more burnt sections. I think this is probably a 10-year-old burn, but you can see that there is a lot of succession going on here. And as I rolled back into camp, the sun was going down, and the elk were crossing the pastures and the dirt road. But it was really nice to get back to camp, because I was really concerned that hypothermia might set in, because my clothes were still wet and it was still very cold. But I've really enjoyed the crossing of Magruder, and I highly recommend it. But I would suggest that anybody that's going to attempt it has Plan B in place, and lots of water, especially if you're going to do it in the summer. I would also recommend travelers in the summer to carry extra water, or at least a water filter, so you can pull out of the creek. I'll never forget my journey across Magruder. I sure did enjoy the campfire that night, watching the sun go down. Please join me next time as I roll down into the Payette Forest, find a abandoned skoolie, and go skinny dipping in the Salmon River. See you then.